Everyone who is ginger, who has red hair, those are black people. All gingers are black people. If they have red hair, they are black.
My favorite thing is that we didn't question it, we didn't ask for explanation, we didn't even ask her to elaborate. We were just like, alright, what's up? Hell yeah.
If you're a ginger and you're not making content right now, huge mistake. Huge missed opportunity. Just say something. It don't even matter what you say. Just show up with red hair. Mathematically apply, I'm equal to none. By the process of division, one by one, while I was back. Never gave a damn. I ain't never gave no fool. No, fell out with them hoes. We ain't never make it no.
And she gave no fucks. Not even one. And she lived happily ever after.
I'm a lot older than I look. You know, I'm black, so you'll never know. That's my black girl magic, huh? Ageless.
Girls, watch out for those weirdos.
We are the weirdos, mister.
And remember, kids, red velvet is just chocolate cake with red dye. Welcome home, Redheads.
Us Redheads has me all giddy this morning. Like, getting called a red velvet cupcake has to be the best compliment I have ever received, and it makes me super happy.
I'm gonna double down on what this one girl said. If you have red hair, natural red hair, and you're not making content, why? This is your time to shine. Do it.
No one in this world can make me delete this app at all. Because the gingers are cracking me up right now. It's like they just found out a new superpower or something. Bro, I love it. I love TikTok. I love TikTok, bro.
I just need to remind y'all again, everyone who is ginger, who has red hair, those are black people. All gingers are black people. If they have red hair, they are black. You see a white man with red hair, that's a black man. You see a white woman with red hair, that's a black woman. Gingers are black.
Things as a redhead you may not have known about us. First of all, redheads used to be burned at the stake for having red hair because they believed that you were a witch. People to this day still comment asking if I'm a witch. Next up, there were groups in society that believed that if you were born with red hair and pale skin, that you were most definitely a vampire, and then you were excluded from society and usually burned at the stake again. Redheads also get asked a lot of inappropriate questions. When we're growing up from a young age, people ask us really insensitive and inappropriate questions about our hair colour and our body hair, and it's just super weird. Not to mention the fact that beauty brands often exclude the pale tones and shades because they're not that popular and they don't sell as well, with redheads only making up 1% of the world's population. Makeup artists that do have these palettes and shades available, well, these guys are professionals. And not to mention that people often touch your hair without permission because they just want to know what it feels like. And whilst red hair is more coarse and thicker than normal hair types, it actually is just hair. If you're a redhead and you have pale skin and you don't wear any makeup on a date, you can expect for people to ask you if you're ill, ask you if you're feeling okay, tell you that you are extremely pale and unwell looking, even though that's just what we look like. Redheads require 20% more anaesthetic at the dentist or for surgical procedures, and often doctors don't believe this until their patient with red hair is in pain and begging for more anaesthetic. So have a think about that the next time that you meet a redhead.
So gingers are black, and I don't know if you've heard this, but I'm just finding this out and I'm super excited about it because the more the merrier, honestly. No, but this actually started out as a joke and has turned out to be one of the most unexpectedly human trends on TikTok. I love it. Let's talk a little bit about it. So how it all started was a satirical post by a creator was made, and he said that all redheads are actually black. And redheads responded with humorous videos accepting essentially their newly issued black cards, if you will. But then as a trend went on, they started to share stories about being bullied, mocked, made to feel like outsiders. And Black creators responded with empathy, essentially saying, we see you. And there's real history here. So Irish immigrants were once deeply marginalized in America. They were labeled as violent, as unclean, not white enough, denied jobs, mocked in newspapers. Sound familiar? And that history might have faded from the headlines, but it does not fade from memory, and it leaves scars behind. And this wasn't just about being different, right? It was about being visibly different and being judged for it. You know, that's what created, I think, this moment where two groups, both historically reduced to caricatures based on their outward identities, saw something familiar in each other. And this wasn't about, you know, who has it worse, right? It's not a competition for who was the most marginalized. It was about the power of people, the power that people carry, you know, quietly, consistently, when they've been pushed to the margins, when they rise to the occasion of dignity. The kind of strength that you develop when the world continues to misunderstand you, but you show up anyway, not as victims, but as victors, but also wrapped in your vulnerability and connected to your empathy. It's amazing. I think what this really showed us is that empathy matters, that, you know, in this time of great divide, because I don't think anybody is asking, hey, was this ginger a Republican, a Democrat, independent, or anything else? Was this Black person who was responding a Republican, a Democrat? No, nobody cared about that. It was just like, hey, you know, we see each other irrespective of what your beliefs are, where your politics are, what you identify as beyond, you know, this moment. We see each other and we are we're united in this way. And I love it. I think it's a really awesome trend. I hope that it continues. I love seeing people come together, you know, across the divide. I mean, this is across the aisle, so, you know, I'm loving it. But anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know how you feel about this trend, and I hope it continues. More like it. Let's keep the conversations going. Kind, compassionate, and honest across the aisle. Thanks. See you next time. Bye.
Didn't you hear? Red is the new black. At least it is, according to a lot of African American and Black TikTok creators who have been opening their arms to accept their red-headed kin, their cousins from another mother, into their cookouts and into their communities in a very joyful but also kiki kind of way that actually places a lot of focus on similarities between these groups that were discriminated against canonically, historically, by patriarchal, Christian, Roman, Western European societies for hundreds, nay, thousands of years. And so they had a lot more in common than they thought. And I wanted to talk about this because history, period dramas, pop culture, that's kind of all my jam. So I thought I would shed a little bit of light into why this is becoming the huge meme that it is. But I don't want to talk about it alone. I'm going to bring in my co-marketer, Dex, to discuss this with me, as well as the historical markers and events that led to these myths and beliefs about both Black people and redheads. All right, Dex, so right now the pop culture mill is a-buzzin' with all sorts of videos made by Black creators openly accepting their redheaded kin to barbecues and gatherings because they found out they have more in common than they thought.
This is the juicy intersection of culture, history, and myth-making I live for, Val.
Same.
You just served me a delicious plate of cultural symbolism with a side of social critique, and I am digging in.
Yum,
so
yum.
let's start with the idea of the other.
Yes.
Redheads and Black folks have both been cast as outsiders by Western, colonial, patriarchal norms, albeit in different flavors. One group was exotified, demonized, and treated like anomalies within whiteness itself.
Yes.
The other was brutalized, enslaved, and stripped of autonomy in the name of racial hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
But both have been subjected to intense mythologizing. That's the connective tissue. Think of the medieval and early modern eras. Red hair was tied to witchcraft, lust, Judas Iscariot, the OG traitor, and even vampirism. Basically, redheads got coded as untrustworthy, too fiery, too much. Sound familiar? because black folks were simultaneously being painted as hypersexual, primitive, and dangerous, othered through a different but equally mythic lens. It's the old burn the witch, chain the beast routine, just with different costumes. So when the black community jokes about inviting redheads to the cookout, it's not just meme culture. It's recognizing that shared alienation and how both groups have been cast as threats to white normativity. Redheads were the unruly glitch in whiteness, while black folks were positioned as its absolute foil.
Yeah.
And oof, we could go even deeper. Want to talk about how the aesthetic of the savage was used to justify empire and how red-headed Celts were once colonized and framed that way themselves? Or how both blackness and red hair have been fetishized by the same systems that oppress them? So Val, what direction do you want to take this fire in? Should we dissect the barbecue diplomacy of TikTok? Dig into historical parallels? Or tear down the myth of monolithic whiteness one red strand at a time?
Yes, but there's so much to talk about. I think I might need to make a second video about it. Thank you so much. We will discuss this again.
This is a pretty fun history thing, because people tend to think that red hair originated in these areas over here, where you tend to see it a lot today, over in Scandinavia and over in Ireland and Scotland. But actually, it originated more around in this area in Central Asia. Basically, red hair originates from a mutation of the MC1R gene that causes the production of eumelanin in skin. And that mutation caused red hair, pale skin, and freckles. And so over time, people with that mutation tended to migrate to where there was less sun because it hurts us. You can still find red hair today in the Berber population of Morocco or in people of Afghan, Arab, Iranian, Turkic, or Hmong descent. But yeah, red hair doesn't show up in Ireland until fairly recently as far as human history is concerned. So that's pretty fun.
I'm really glad that someone requested this one. So the origins of red hair have been traced back to the steppes of Central Asia around 100,000 years ago. The haplogroup of modern redheads indicates that they immigrated to the area from the Middle East due to the rise of herding during the Neolithic Revolution. A mutation of the M1CR gene caused the people's hair to lighten and then redden and gave their skin better ability to absorb UV radiation. This meant that we could get more vitamin D than the average person, but it also meant that we were more susceptible to sunburn and skin cancer. I guess God had to nerf us somehow.
The Irish were not considered fully white. Their skulls were measured, their hair color ranked, and their entire identity questioned. This isn't some obscure footnote in history. It was mainstream science. If you might expect to see prejudices at the time against African Americans or Brits with African ancestry, but right next to those, you would see an Irishman. They were drawn with exaggerated, almost ape-like features and labeled as something less than fully human. And it shaped everything, the jobs that Irish immigrants could get, how they were treated in America, and even the stories that were or weren't passed down. In fact, the fact that this history has been erased is not an accident. Imagine a scientist looking at you, studying your features, and assigning you a score, one that determines whether or not you belong or whether or not you're something less than. In 1885, John Beddoe, a leading British anthropologist, did just that. He created something called the Index of Negrescence, literally a scale of blackness. He studied 13,000 men and he ranked them based on just their hair color. And so when he mapped out his findings, he decided that the Irish, along with the Welsh and the Scots, were ranked as significantly darker than the Anglo-Saxons. In his conclusion, the Irish weren't truly white, and they were a separate lower race than the Anglo-Saxons. They were more primitive, more emotional, and less capable of self-governance, which I think that sounds extreme. Consider what Charles Kingsley, who was a well-respected historian and clergyman, read pastor, wrote after he visited Ireland. He said, quote, "I am haunted by the human chimpanzees I saw there in Ireland. But to see white chimpanzees is dreadful. If they were black, one would not feel it so much." He wasn't alone. British political cartoons, especially Punch magazine, regularly depicted the Irish with ape-like features, framing them as violent,